Namaskar and welcome to Public Forum. I am Charu Karthikeyan. In this edition, we shift focus to the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. The conference recently concluded in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It was held there from 20th to the 22nd of June. At the end of the day, what is the big picture? What do these pledges mean? What was the significance of this summit for the theme which it talked about, sustainable development? These are some of the questions that I'll be trying to take a look at in this edition of Public Forum. Joining me in Public Forum today is an extremely distinguished panel of experts. On my extreme left is Dr. Shrikant Panigrahi. Dr. Panigrahi is an environmentalist and been associated with the climate change developments for a very long time. Dr. Panigrahi, thank you so much for coming in here. Right next to Dr. Panigrahi is Professor C.K. Varshney, formerly with the School of Environmental Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and very noted Professor of Environmental Sciences. Professor Varshney, thank you so much for coming here. And right here with me is Urmi Goswami, Special Correspondent with the Economic Times. Urmi, thank you so much for coming here. Dr. Panigrahi, I would like to begin with you. In your view, what have been the deliverables from the Rio Plus 20? A lot of people have even called it a missed opportunity, but there are mixed reactions which are coming as of now if you take a look at various analyst reports and various media reports. But in your view, what have been the deliverables from the Rio Plus 20 summit?
Deliverables are very important for which the whole world were expecting.
Yeah.
And I would say it's kind of a mixed response, and there is not very clear-cut deliverables has come out.
Okay.
The entire environmental process started about 40 years ago in Stockholm, and after that it was decided on June 5th of 1972 that in every 20 years each country will meet in a common place and debate and discuss about their environmental protection issues. But again after 72, in 92 the whole world got united in Rio, and this is Rio plus 20 and Stockholm for plus 40. The whole world were again in June had reunited. As you told, more than 195 countries participated, and head of the nations were about 150, and there were 50 pages of Rio Declaration with 300 paragraphs.
The future we want.
Future we want, which negotiated, which is negotiated from June 13th to June 22nd. And even in many of the points, many of the head of the states could not able to come to a common conclusion. And the American President Barack Obama, the Merkel, Angela, the German Chancellor, and Cameron, David Cameron, a British Prime Minister. In their absence, the Chinese Premier and Indian Prime Minister were hero of the show, and they were largely in supportive of G77 and in favor of the common arguments, said poverty eradication or right to food or common and differential responsibility, which were largely the text from the developing world, and G77 bloc prevailed.
Okay.
And it was India says it is a win-win situation because poverty eradication was accepted. The living style, luxurious living style of the West has been taken into negative perspective, and although there is a lot of differences also, after all European Union were expecting that there should be a common goal imposed to each the nations, and somehow the developing world and G77 opposed it. You cannot impose any country to force to cut the subsidy on fossil fuels, or any such issues. Technology transfer issues are there. there are also issues of finance, and so many important agreements.
So I'll come to all those
upon.
issues in detail subsequently, but right now what you're saying is that if we speak in terms of deliverables, not many deliverables from this summit, but then if we look at the outcome in totality, it was a mixed bag. Professor Varshney, Europe seems to be hugely disappointed. Europe, if you take a look at the reactions which have come in from European leaders, Mary Robinson, who's former Irish president and the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, she had said that the document was failure of leadership. Britain's Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg has said, he went so far as to call the summit insipid. Former Brazilian President Fernando Cardoso had expressed similar kind of disagreements. Okay, so there's at least one nation which is not part of the European bloc which is looking at the summit in negative perspective. Oxfam has said that the summit was shamefully devoid of progress. Such kind of extreme reactions which have come from various corners of the world. Was the summit devoid of progress?
I think it is a question that from which perspective you really look at the outcome of the summit and what were your original expectation. So people try to measure the outcome on the basis of the initial expectations they have. And in this, let me say that there are some valid reasons for people to take this kind of a view, and I will give you two instances. Number one, that for last 20 years plus, the European Union and the industrialized countries were harping upon a strategy to blunt the economic edge that the developing countries have in view of the global situation. Now, this seems to have been completely melted, which they have been maintaining so far, because they have done their best in these last 20 years to dilute and to say and discard the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. And they were pressurizing that China and India must contribute because they are different than rest of the developing countries. But that seems to have not really been success. And now it has been accepted that what was initially discussed at Rio 20 years ago has again been brought to the table and has become more established and wide agreement to that. And therefore, this, if you look from the perspective of India, I mean, India has been successful in really entrenching this and establishing this as a guiding principle, which was in doldrums in past 20 years. So this is a success, or we may say that we have been, it's not a success that we have moved forward, it's a question of retrieving the situation and establishing it. Secondly, most of the renewable energy companies, because there were a large number of companies as business interests which were also present, and most of the world governments, particularly the industrialized countries in particular, I think I'll say all countries, are also have a lot of influence of the business houses and the business interest, and they were disappointed in the sense that, let me give you one very specific example. For the fossil fuel, they say it's a win-win situation, but those who were really looking forward for a major push for the renewable energy sector, they are totally disappointed, because the subsidy has not been diluted or has not been completely said no subsidy anymore. So I think this is one such example. Likewise, they were also thinking that the green economy will become the guiding principle, and there has to be some kind of a definite goals as we have in the other program. Now, these goals were not acceptable, because you cannot really have a goal without having the means very clear, because the kind of economic assistance and the technology transfer which we have been expecting and for which we have been negotiating for past 20 years has not come by. And therefore, it is very difficult for the developing countries to really come up on their own to really meet the requirements and the challenges to meet the goals, because goals then becomes a catchword and it becomes a trap that every time they will be then shown in a light that they are not really keeping up their commitment. So from this point of view, this is something that from which direction you are seeing and from which perspective you are seeing and what were your initial expectations. Let me also tell you that the outcome of this conference is not going to really say something very different, and it is for this reason that 3 world leaders have really absented themselves. And the most important part is that this conference was taking place under the cloud of economic downturn in the industrialized countries, and therefore their business interest and their business agenda could not move forward. So I think this is the reason. Otherwise, there are many other important aspects which we can really look into. Number one, that the green jobs offers an opportunity.
Professor Varshney, I'll come to you later for all those details. Let me also bring in Urmi here now. Urmi, I would like to know also your take. What is the big picture as far as the outcome is concerned? What is your take on the outcome of the summit?
Well, you know, when UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon had described this meeting as once in a generation chance, actually nothing much happened. It's been bit insipid. It is true, as Professor Varshney said, depends on which side of the road you're looking from. But the fact is, all that has been agreed at Rio is that we will keep talking, and we will keep talking and push the can down to 2015. In the current situation, the current economic situation, which is extremely strained for the developed world, but is not exactly very glorious even for developing countries like ours. It seems like an achievement that you're still standing, that you're still talking, that you haven't walked away. But the fact is that much more was expected out of this. This is the moment when we are talking about looking at a different way of developing. And I think, in a sense, India's insistence that we should talking of finance and technology is okay. I mean, yes, you know, the developed world became developed through unsustainable means, and they should make reparation in that sense for their unsustainable means, which has brought us to this pass. But at the same time, I think as we grow, we need to be looking inward as well and realizing, should we be actually following the same unsustainable path, and will following the unsustainable path in the current constraints, both economic and environmental, give us what we really want, that of poverty eradication. I think there is a need to separate, one, what we do when we go abroad and negotiate internationally, and two, what we do domestically. And I think somewhere we haven't made that distinction. So it's okay to go and say that the developed world should give us finance, should give us technology, but at the same time there should be enough indications domestically to say that we are taking note. Because if we do not pay attention to issues like degradation of natural capital or human well-being, all we end up doing is trapping our own people in poverty. There are poverty traps, and the only way to get out is to address these issues. Look at it very simply. If you have a community, or we have large sections of our population, those dependent on agriculture, or tribals living in forest, who are directly dependent on nature, whether it's through agriculture and rains or through forests. Now, if the quality of nature, there's a degradation there, that is, rains don't come on time, or the soil fertility becomes bad, which is happening, or our forests are reduced in their quantities, we are actually making their lives tougher. We are finding no ways to break them out of their poverty traps. So these are issues that we should also think about. Rio was expected to be a beacon for that kind of discussion. But was that expectation realistic? Perhaps not, because these are 193 countries discussing, each one maintaining their self-interest. You cannot expect India to go there and say, no, no, we will do all this on our own. You don't expect it. But I think there is a way, there's a position that you can take, one which is both pragmatic and idealistic, and that is a position we haven't taken yet.
Okay, so you're saying that if one was expecting that some real breakthrough would have emerged at Rio, that was really an unrealistic sort of an expectation from the summit. On that note, it's time for us to slip into a very short break. When we come back, the discussion will continue. Stay tuned to Public Forum.